Merry Christmas, everybody, or Merry Christmas Eve for when this video is coming out. Merry Christmas if you're watching this the day after, or the year after, if it's Christmas 2025 for you. Hello there. So I've broken down already my most anticipated movies for 2025, and I'm beginning to do some of my other top yearly lists, you know, the best movies of the year. That'll be coming very, very soon after I see my last couple movies that I gotta see. Some of the TV show stuff, the video game stuff, all those videos are coming, so please make sure to subscribe to notifications. Today, in honor of this list, I am wearing my New York Giants hoodie, because today we are going to be breaking down the stinky of the stinkiest, the worst of the worst, the baddest, most terrible movies of 2024 in a year that had a lot of stinky movies.
You are a sniveling little suck-up sellout full of suffering succotash, son!
Because 2024 is a year that did have a lot of good stuff, a lot of stuff that people got very excited about, a lot of stuff that people really enjoyed. But it's also a year that just was home to a lot of disappointment, a lot of gigantic big studio movies that just had completely failed and face-planted on the ground once they had come out, and just a lot of films that were not very good. This will be in order. These are my least favorite movies of the year from top to bottom, and I will say some of these movies that are on this list are not the worst made films of the year. There are a lot of very well-made movies on this list, movies that are actually kind of extremely well made when it comes to the budget and the filmmaking. There are other reasons for why a film can make this list. Egregious reasons for why you can make this list. Imagine The Rise of Skywalker, a movie that, yes, is very beautifully shot, looks very well done, has an amazing budget, you know, good CGI, some good music, but it's one of the worst movies of all time. Why? Because of just what it represents and what the film did to its fan base. So when you see some movies like that in this list, that's why. And also, it's all my opinion. You know, you might really love one or two of these movies. If you love it, that's fine. I'm glad you love it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Because I didn't. I had a bad time watching these films, so yeah, good for you. Let's get into it. At number 10 is MaXXXine. This is the final movie in this weird Ty West trilogy of horror films. The first two movies that I really enjoyed. Of course, you had X and you had Pearl. MaXXXine was going to be the final film in this weird sort of trilogy that is kind of connected, also not really connected in a weird way. Meaning, like, you could watch all three of these movies without having seen the others, is kind of what I mean by that. Whereas X and Pearl were kind of these really inventive sort of slasher films, MaXXXine is a weird murder mystery type thing that's set in, I believe, the 70s, and it was trying to do something very, very different from those first two, of telling, like, this weird eyes wide shut, cult-like story about MaXXXine trying to make it in Hollywood as this murder drama is going on. And I was really excited for this one. This was one of my more anticipated films of the year. It just ended up being really boring and really falling flat. I thought the twists and the reveals throughout the film just didn't really land, and it was super, super forgettable. And it also came out at a period of time where there were a lot of movies like this, slashers and horror films dropping left and right, and it just kind of got mixed into all of those as being the worst of the bunch. Which is a real shame, because I do really enjoy the first two films of this trilogy. So that sucks. It sucks. The movie, it's bad. It's not good.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
At number 9 is Horizon Chapter 1, the American Western Saga, whatever this thing's called. Kevin Costner's weird Western movie that he, like, sold his farm or something to make. He also, you know, ruined Yellowstone to make this thing. Thanks, Kevin Costner. This is supposed to be part 1 of, I believe, a planned trilogy or a planned 4-movie, like, quartet of films. The first 2 movies are filmed and made. The second chapter still has not released. If it'll ever release, I'll be interested to see if it's any better than this. The problem with Horizon is it's just way too big and ambitious and long. This is a very, very ginormous movie that just doesn't have a lot actually in it. It's a film that has some interesting characters and locations and ideas, but none of them really come together well because it feels like they're being stretched out. The story is being really slow-paced just so it could be stretched into a 4-movie saga. And because of that, it just doesn't really work at all as a movie. I really enjoyed the first 30 minutes of this. There's a really intense sequence with this Native American tribe attacking the settlers. And watching that first 30 minutes, I was like, man, this movie's going to be epic. This is going to be amazing because it's really well done, the tension, the suspense. But unfortunately, that 30 minutes in this 3-hour movie is literally the only part of it that's entertaining at all. The rest of it is just hogswash. It's just nonsense and boring. And yeah, Kevin Costner's here at times, and he's awesome as he always is, but there's just not enough here to get excited about. This is a movie that you more than likely will fall asleep while watching. I almost did. Multiple times while watching this thing, I was dozing off. So yeah. Will I watch part 2? Yeah. Is this one of the worst movies of the year, though? Yeah, unfortunately. Thanks for ruining Yellowstone, Kevin. We really appreciate it. God dang it, man.
We were on the verge of greatness. We were this close.
At number 8 is Uglies. This is the brand new sort of dystopian book adaptation that Netflix has now brought to screen, starring Joey King, and it's a movie That just, I mean, come on, look at the poster. Everybody kind of knew from the poster this would be really generic and bad, but I was hoping maybe at least it would kind of be, like, a cool concept. A lot of those, like, dystopian dramas that we used to get in, like, the early 2010s, even if they were bad, they still had a certain charm to them. This one doesn't. This one's just bloated and really cringy and has some terrible characters and dialogue and a concept that is so stupid and mind-numbingly dumb that it is sort of entertaining. Joey King needs a new agent because she is a really spectacular actress, but how does she keep getting latched on to do these horrible Netflix movies? My God, you're ruining your career, Joey. I made a video saying that Uglies is an ugly movie, and yes, it is a very ugly movie, which is why it's number 8 on my list of the worst movies of the year. It's really bad. And number 7 is Borderlands. Yeah, Borderlands was a film, and that's probably the biggest praise I could say about it, is that it is a movie. If you didn't know, Borderlands is a video game, a very popular looter shooter, and they had a brand new movie made for it this year. A movie that had a very large budget, and apparently a script that most people described as masterful. The script for this film was apparently incredible. This was written and directed by Eli Roth, who is a very credible director, a really good filmmaker. And, you know, apparently there were a lot of issues in the background of this film, a lot of studio interference, other directors coming in and putting their hands in the cuts of this film. Apparently this version of the film is not what Eli Roth originally intended, and maybe there's a really interesting story there that will one day be revealed. But the movie that we did get in theaters was a bloated mess of a big action movie that they obviously wanted to create a franchise out of. Instead, it's just kind of a weird Guardians of the Galaxy ripoff that's boring and just nonsense. First off, you have the weirdest cast ever. A lot of big actors that are just feel like they're really miscast in a way. Cate Blanchett is in this movie as the lead, and she, for the first time in her career, is not very good. She's just completely miscast here. She is not a great pick to be the star of an action lead drama in this big CGI world. It just doesn't work in my opinion. Kevin Hart is playing a guy who's not funny. Why would you cast Kevin Hart as a character whose entire gimmick is that he's not funny and he's boring? Come on. Ariana Greenblatt does, like, a decent job. She's the only one sort of having fun here. And Jamie Lee Curtis, I love her and everything. I can never say a bad thing about Jamie Lee Curtis. She's awesome. It's just boring. It's big-budget CGI nonsense. You know what you're going to get out of movies like this these days. And in the last 2 years, where video game adaptations have been reinvigorated and we've had some pretty good video game movies, Borderlands was not good. I do not recommend watching it. And number 6 is Unfrosted. Oh, Jerry Seinfeld. How you have just disappointed me, man. I love Jerry Seinfeld. I just love his comedy. I love, obviously, Seinfeld, the TV show. Big Met fan. How can you not love Jerry Seinfeld? Well, you can watch Unfrosted, and then you probably won't like him that much. Unfrosted is a biopic about the making of the Pop-Tart, starring Jerry Seinfeld, who plays the guy that invented the Pop-Tart. How does this fail? This should be a very simple movie that should be fun and enjoyable, maybe a little bit forgettable, but that's certainly not embarrassingly bad. The issue with Unfrosted is it's embarrassingly bad. It's a movie that's so unfunny it actually kind of hurts. It's so goofy that it almost makes you think that the people writing it were writing it for an audience of 2-year-olds. It's a movie that just, it fails at its own premise of making an interesting story about the invention of the Pop-Tart, feeling like something that's way more fantastical than it should be. We just had a movie about a similar subject to this a year ago, that Flaming Hot movie about Flaming Hot Cheetos. A movie that's also not very good, but it's not embarrassingly bad that it needs to be talked about on a worst of the year list. It was fine and entertaining. Unfrosted, very sad, very disappointing, a waste of Jerry Seinfeld's amazing talent. And number 5 is the I.S.S, a movie that came out early in the year that I actually had some high hopes for because it has a lot of talent in it. The I.S.S is a very interesting concept. If you didn't know what the I.S.S is, it's the International Space Station, a space station shared by both Russian and American astronauts. And the concept of this movie is that there's a nuclear war between the two countries as these astronauts are together in the I.S.S. What happens now? Do they turn against each other, or do they just go with logic and not kill each other? It's a fascinating concept, a fascinating sort of movie that could be told there. Unfortunately, this thing just is very generic and boring, and just the most forgettable sort of thriller, horror, slasher thing you're gonna get all year. You have Ariana DeBose, who's one of the best actresses we have today, you know, has an Oscar, just being completely wasted here. She's been wasted a lot this year, unfortunately. And it's just a movie that I felt really down about because I had high hopes for it. I think it's a cool concept and you could have had a cool script here. It's just a movie that is ultimately really boring. And number 4 is Madam Web, which is 10 times worse than Kraven the Hunter. Kraven the Hunter is not on this list. It's not one of the worst movies of the year. It's not good, but it's also not awful. Like, it's a fine movie. I'm gonna stop ranting about Kraven the Hunter and how much the internet has overhated. And talking about Madam Web and how the internet accurately hated Madam Web. Madam Web is really bad. I will give it some credit. It's one of those so bad it's actually amazingly entertaining type of movies. Like, I will watch Madam Web again because it's so much fun to watch how little of a shit Dakota Johnson gave in this movie, and how all the actors are kind of here just knowing the movie is bad and not giving a shit. The overly melodramatic villain with horrible ADR, like the terrible CGI, just everything that happens in this movie in its own way is kind of hilarious and funny. And Sydney Sweeney's here, and I like looking at Sydney Sweeney because she's beautiful, and who doesn't? I mean, what guy out there doesn't? So there are some positives. Some. Yeah, it's a movie with no plot. It's a movie with a character that probably should have never gotten her own movie. It's a film with a terrible villain, and just everything about this is not good. How this ever got made with a Hollywood budget is absolutely mind-boggling, but I am so happy it did because it is going to be one of the most memed movies in the entire history of cinema. So good job, Sony. Good job, Amy Pascal. You made a meme. Awesome. And number 3 is Atlas, another straight-to-Netflix movie. This one starring Jennifer Lopez, the almost owner of the New York Mets at one point, now the sole holder of number 3 of the worst movies of Joe Marchione's 2024. Atlas is a gigantic CGI monstrosity where Jennifer Lopez plays this person who's in like a mech suit, and she fights some other people in a mech suit, and I think Simu Liu is the villain, and that's all I really remember about this monstrosity because I only watched it once and I hated it, and I'm never going back to it. This is another one of those empty big CGI films that Netflix makes where they put very little effort into the story and the world and everything going on in it, and they're just like, hey, gigantic mechs and J-Lo, and yes, people are gonna love this, they're going to definitely watch it, and keep watching it and streaming it and not watch it in a movie theater because movie theaters are evil. We're gonna destroy movie theaters. We're gonna make Martin Scorsese and Ryan Johnson release their movies straight to streaming so people can watch it on the TV, on their cell phones, not in movie theaters. Movie theaters are awful. Who wants to sit in a movie theater and watch The Irishman? I mean, come on, please. No, they want to be at home watching Atlas. Yes, that's what we need more of, baby. Yes! What else can we put on the Netflix screen, on the small screen? What else can we take from movie theaters? What else can we create? Well, at number 2, we have Rebel Moon Part 2, the second one, whatever the title is, because yes, Netflix, what a year they had. Zack Snyder, I love you, man. This movie sucked. Rebel Moon was bad, and it did you no favors in, like, making people feel bad about how DC treated you, because my god, these movies were really, really bad. And Rebel Moon, listen, I bet that there is a good idea there, that Zack Snyder's grand vision for this world is probably really cool, and there are nitpicks in both of these Rebel Moon movies that could be something. Maybe if he wrote it as a novel series, as a gigantic sci-fi fantasy series, that could have been something that could work, but as a big screen adaptation, it just feels very contained. This is, like, both of these movies, it was so weird. It was almost like the same movie doubled up about protecting this small little village as this big galactic war is happening. It could have been cool. The characters are boring. The plot is just not there. The second one I thought was even worse than the first one just because it rehashed the plot of the first one. My biggest criticism at the end of the first one, I said, you know, this movie sucked, but at the very least, there's a promise that the world is going to expand in the second one, and we'll see more of the Rebel Moon universe, and the story will get grander, and maybe there's something more there to really latch onto. And instead, the second one just rehashed the first one. It was bizarre. I don't know where Snyder goes next, but I know it's probably not Rebel Moon 3, which is a good thing. This was really disappointing, and it's easily the second worst movie of the year. These movies sucked, and Netflix, you suck. You're up there with Disney on the sucking list. But you're not number 1 this year. The number 1 suckiest of the suck when it comes to sucky companies, filmmakers, and movies is easily Joker Folie Deux. And yes, my god, this pains me to do. This is unbelievable for me to even fathom that Joker Folie Deux is my number 1 worst movie of the year. Go back a full year to my most anticipated movies of 2024. Number 1. And for me, of course, number 1 is going to be Joker Folie Deux, okay? Come on. Listen, I'm the biggest Joker fan in the world. He's my favorite character in anything ever. I think the character is just so amazing and can literally do anything for me. And I was so excited for this. I was probably the biggest fan of Joker and the biggest fan when it came to being excited about the sequel. I screamed for years, we need Joker 2. Joker 2 could be so awesome. Todd Phillips, Joaquin Phoenix, Lady Gaga, my god, give him the Oscars. I was so here for it. And then I saw the movie. My God, Todd Phillips, you are a scumbag.
You have no fucking idea how not fucking cool that shit is.
You know, and I hate calling other filmmakers mean things like that. I'm trying to be a filmmaker. I'm not trying to insult people. But you made a movie that essentially gives the middle finger to anybody who enjoyed your last movie. Who does that? Who was this movie made for? This movie was made for those elitist journalists, like all 5 of them, that wrote, like, hit pieces on Joker 1 on how it was inspiring violence and it's right-wing hatred, whatever the hell they were saying at the time. Those 5 awful journalists that everybody hated at the time, yeah, Joker Folie was made for you. Anybody that enjoyed Joker, or anybody that enjoys movies in general, no, this movie is an F-U to you. This movie is made to anger you, to piss you off. It is an utter disaster. And no, it's not because it's a musical. A Joker musical could have really worked. No, it's a lazy musical with jukebox songs that really have no connection to what's actually going on in the movie, with really kind of half-assed sort of set pieces and creative choices. You have Joaquin Phoenix giving his absolute all in this movie, actually giving a performance that is almost as good as the first movie. Joaquin Phoenix wanted to make a true Joker sequel. He clearly put in the effort here, and I think even he, and I don't know if he'll ever say it, probably feels betrayed by this movie in the script, because my God, did he not look so disappointed at the freaking premiere, I think at Cannes. Lady Gaga, what a waste of talent. This could have been her Oscar moment, the big movie to break out into being one of the best actresses of the year. Instead, she's going to lose her Best Supporting Actress Oscar that was supposed to be hers. Now it's going to go to Ariana Grande. My God, how did this happen? The movie's an insult. It's just an absolute insult to the first movie, which I thought was amazing. It's an insult to the fans, and I think everybody involved from the top level of this film, the people involved with greenlighting this script, with making this script, with directing this script. Yes, I'm looking at you, Todd Phillips. It should be embarrassing for them. And the way that they reacted after the movie of saying pretty much, we don't care if people don't like this movie, we don't care if this movie fails, because the movie is exactly what it needed to be, and you should all like it, and you know what, screw you if you don't like it, and you know what, guess what, your movie bombed, critics hated it, the only person that really liked this movie was Quentin Tarantino, you know? Harvey Weinstein's best friend?
Because it's so much fun, Chan. Get it?
Yeah, he liked the movie. Congratulations, Todd Phillips. You ruined your reputation as a filmmaker. You ruined pretty much every other movie you're going to make from here on out, because people will forever remember you for this. Congratulations. You are the new J.J. Abrams. That's it. Those are the worst movies of the year. And I'm a little sweaty because I was just ranting. Because this year was a year that kind of pissed me off a little. Like, Joker is a movie that angered me more than most bad movies anger me. A lot of the movies on this list, no anger. They were just bad. They just stunk a little bit. Joker, no, that pissed me off. Thank you guys for watching, though. What are your worst movies of the year of 2024? What movies made you angry? Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, turn on notifications. I'll see you in the next one.